Hi, my name is Beth Kuntz, and I'm an archaeologist in the anthropology department at Vanderbilt University, and I'm applying for a public scholarship grant through the Curb Center. My aims under the grant would be twofold. One, to prepare and develop 2 research articles about the complexities of looting in my research area, which is the Majes Valley of southern Peru, and 2, to develop a video for the public that explains what looting of archaeological sites entails and how it affects our interpretation of archaeological context. Many sites in this entire valley are completely destroyed from looting activity. This particular site has been looted. You can see evidence of these big holes in the earth that are about 1 meter to 2 meters deep. There are cigarette packets in the bottom of the holes as well. And all these indicate that looting has taken place. The other reason that we know looting has taken place here is that any diagnostic ceramics that would help us date the site, most of those are missing. And what the looters left behind are lots of human bone and pretty plain textiles. Looting is a problem that archaeologists all over the world face. At our site, you can see very clear-cut evidence of looting. Here's a glass bottle that's actually pretty old, so this might be from a looting event from about 20 or 30 years ago. And you can also see buckets and plastic bottles that provide further evidence that the looters have been here. Also, you can see in front of you really large holes. The looters have already excavated about 1 meter down into the site, and presumably they've already taken a lot of materials out of the site. This looting disrupts archaeological interpretations, and it keeps us from understanding the archaeological provenience or the archaeological context of artifacts that are taken from this site. For example, archaeologists understand the sequence of events in history based on their location in stratigraphy. So the general principle is that the older artifacts are, the lower down they will be in the stratigraphy of a site. So the things on the top are younger and the things on the bottom are older. But looters tend to take the most diagnostic artifacts, the prettiest ceramics, the prettiest metal objects, gold, all of these materials that are worth a lot on the international antiquities market. They target those materials and take them first. So oftentimes at a site like this, we have evidence of archaeological activity, but we don't necessarily have very good evidence of the time period that the site dates to. If we had good ceramics in their archaeological context, in the stratigraphy, we would be able to tell, for example, what age these bones, or what era or period these bones came from. As a bioarchaeologist, I study human remains. Looting is a problem that archaeologists all over the world have to deal with. Looters typically break in at night into an archaeological site, and they'll dig incredibly deep trenches. This particular hole is an excavation unit that we excavated. We chose to expand a looter's hole that was already present, and we excavated down further to try to find other cultural materials intact that might have been under the level of looting. Here, what we found was at least 2 different discrete levels of looting, or 2 different looting events. We found this first one at the very surface of the site. We uncovered disarticulated mummy bundles here, lots of artifacts that the looters left behind, kind of plainware ceramics, things that weren't very exciting to the looters, that wouldn't have fetched a high price on the antiquities market. And then we also encountered about 1 meter under that looting level, a second discrete looting level here. What you can see from these 2 different looting events, in this excavation unit, in addition to the cigarette cartons that we found on the surface, Once we excavated about a meter down, we found another layer of human remains. And these were mostly mummy bundles that had been sliced open, and all of the bones were flattened out into this pit. So we uncovered about 10 to 13 individuals in this unit, and we also uncovered 3 different trophy heads, along with lots of ceramics, spindle whorls, really intricate, beautiful textiles, and feathered headdresses. However, what we also uncovered at the bottom of this layer of disarticulated human remains was more evidence of looting. So underneath these 10 to 13 mummy bundles, we also found plastic bottles. We also found the handle of a shovel, which shows that this entire level had already been exposed at one point in time by the looters. Typically, they leave behind human remains, bone, textiles that aren't feathered, ceramics that don't have beautiful designs, and ceramics that aren't intact. And they will also usually take any metal items or anything that they think will fetch a high price on the international black market for antiquities. This site has been systematically and thoroughly destroyed over the past 10 to 20 years. And you can see from the side of the walls here how deep the tomb robbers had to excavate to reach tombs in some places. This entire curve looks like it's been excavated by heavy machinery, but actually all of this part of the site has been excavated by looters who are working in a very organized and thorough manner. We've heard stories that looters came here from as far away as the north coast of Peru on kind of looting field trips to be able to work on this site, and that they'll systematically set up at a set amount of meters apart from each other in order to sample the site, much like an archaeologist would. In this particular sector, we found lots of evidence of cigarettes. We also found coca leaves, and that's something that the tomb robbers they'll chew the coca leaves to be able to work harder throughout the night. It's a stimulant. We also found lots of liquor bottles in some of the other units that sometimes the tomb robbers are drinking the liquor, and sometimes they're placing the liquor as an offering to the spirits so that they are not plagued by diseases when they come in contact with human remains or mummies. There are, interestingly, in coastal Peru, and in this valley in particular, the people who live here, let's look at the town. The real problem with looting of archaeological sites is that it destroys archaeological context or provenience. So when a ceramic or an artifact shows up in a museum collection or on the black market, it shows up without any kind of indication of where it came from. The real problem with archaeological looting is that it destroys provenience or archaeological context. Archaeological context is where an artifact is found in the stratigraphy of the site, and in particular how that artifact is related to all the other artifacts around it. That information is the most important information that we can gather about an artifact, how it relates to other artifacts within the site. So for example, in this unit of excavation, we located 4 different trophy heads, which are an incredibly interesting item to study. Trophy heads are skulls of individuals who have been decapitated, and then a hole is drilled in the skull, and that skull is then typically threaded with some kind of carrying cord and displayed in some way as a belt, on a pole, or hung and displayed in some way. And it would be really interesting to understand what individuals these trophy heads are related with, but we can't ever determine that now because all of our burials were commingled and mixed together. In addition, we found lots of other very interesting artifacts here, interesting ceramics. Here's a bird feather that has a little bit of green on it from a jungle bird that was probably part of a feathered blanket or cape or a feathered headdress. And we can't tell which individuals would have been wearing those headdresses and which individuals would have been associated with these different artifacts. So looting destroys our ability to make any interpretations based on where grave goods are with which individuals. So all of these materials in the profile of the wall are what remains of a disarticulated mummy bundle. Sometimes, if a mummy bundle hasn't been looted, just the pressure of the soil, for example, if an alluvial event occurred and all of the dirt flowed down from the mountain above, sometimes just the weight of that dirt can press on the mummy bundles and kind of tear them apart a little bit. But these mummy bundles had knife marks throughout the textiles, so it's very clear that the tomb robbers were knifing apart the mummy bundles in order to get to the insides and see if there were any metal or gold artifacts that they would be interested in. So what you see here is kind of the leftover part of that. This dark brown layer is a layer of decomposition where the human flesh and human tissues decomposed. And underneath that, you can see a layer of sterile soil where there isn't anything. And then at the very bottom of this excavation unit, we've already salvaged all of these materials, but at the very bottom of the unit was a very thick layer of about 10 to 13 disarticulated individuals. So in this unit, we have evidence of at least 3 different looting events, one on the very surface, here another one about 1 meter down, and here another one about 2 meters down. So at 3 different points in time, tomb robbers excavated into this unit to loot whatever they could from the unit.